A very good evening and a warm welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we hosted Brian Tumwebaze, whose incredible story had people asking for more information about a pacemaker. Tonight, we'll look back at issues of the heart, and we'll start with a story of one man who survived quite an ordeal. We also have a doctor who is going to take us through a pacemaker and give more detail, the detail that you asked for. Now, heart diseases are one of the leading causes of death, but with the advancement in technology, so much has been put in place in the struggle of devising means on how to reduce the number of people losing their lives resulting from heart diseases and infections. For when the heartbeat is too fast, too slow or irregular, a pacemaker helps the heart take its normal beat. In Uganda, many people now are being supported by pacemakers, which help the heart generate enough electricity to stimulate the heartbeat. Reverend Kakoko is one of the many living with pacemakers, and he's in the studio to tell us his story. Let's say it as it is. Once again, thank you for joining us. I'll quickly introduce my guests for this evening. Reverend William Kakoko is sitting right next to me. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you for inviting me to come.
All right, and right next to him is Dr. Didas Mugisa from Zambia Hospital. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, viewers.
Okay. Well, so I want us to start with your story, Reverend Kakoko. From the little I've heard every so often, it's quite an interesting story. What happened in 1999?
1999, Tuesday, 11th, 1999. It was that night I found myself up in heaven. And when I entered there, I looked that way. People I saw were many. I couldn't count them. They were all putting on white garments. All of them putting their hands, praising God. All of a sudden, a curtain behind them, I saw three people sitting in front of me, putting on golden clothes and sitting on golden seats. When I looked at them, I trembled and almost came on my knee before them. Then the third person here told me, go back. And I went back. When I went back, I came up in the sleep. I came up from the sleep. I wake up. When I woke up, I could not open my eyes. My eyes were all stick together. I never opened them. Then all of a sudden, the sleep took me back. Then all of a sudden, I woke up again, second time. And when I looked at the ceiling was turning around, very fast. And all of a sudden, the sleep took me. Then third time, I woke up. And when I woke up, I was actually lying on my back. And I said I started actually understanding. I said, what has happened on me? I tried to raise my right arm, left arm. I couldn't raise them. In my neck, I couldn't raise them. So I said, what has happened on me? This arm, that arm were all crushed up. There were no strength in them. Then, all of a sudden, the sleep took me. I slept again. So when I woke up the first time, my understanding had increased, and I started saying, what has happened on me? When I was still lying on my back, then my heart was beating from right to left, slowly, as if it was going to close. And suddenly, I started knowing that now my time has come to go.
Where were you at this point when you...
I was sleeping.
Where, in your bed?
In a room, home? Alone. No, in Mbarara.
Okay.
I was in Mbarara. We had come from Rukungiri to the body of my uncle, the late Canon Emeritus Sem Ndimbirwe. And after the burial, we came and slept. We wanted to come to Kampala. We slept in Mbarara. And so my two friends had come with, they went to the garage, they went to the hostel, but for me, I went and stayed with my cousin sister near Ambarara University. That's where. And after we had had supper, we slept. They gave me a room, they also slept, and I had my own room and I slept there. So my actually collapsing, I was in the room alone. It was in my room alone, sleeping.
So what happened after that? Did somebody take you to hospital the next day?
That night, the one step I have not experienced. So after that night when I woke up, I heard the cocks crowing, and I heard the bird also singing. That was actually in the morning. We woke up, I dressed up, and friends who had given me a lift came to pick me. They picked me, we came straight away. They took me to Mulago, the parish where I was working. I went home, slept, because I was very tired. Slept. It was up to towards 4, I woke up. When I woke up, I was given something to eat. Then I decided to go to the hospital, to the casualty. When I reached the casualty, there was a doctor who knew me and who knew me. He said, "Reverend, what's wrong with you?" I said, "I'm sick." She said, "Our sick people don't come where you are coming. They come on the train. You are not, you know." Okay, say, "You sit down. When I finish this patient, I'll look at you." Soon he looked at me, he examined me, and sent me to Heart Institute, 4th floor, New Mulago. That's what, at that time, at Heart Institute, it had one room actually. It was very small.
This is about 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yes.
20 years ago. Then they said it was too late. They said, "You are late. Go back and come tomorrow morning." The following morning I came. They examined me. First of all, they examined my ECG. After ECG, they did the
Echo?
They did echo.
Echocardiograph.
And when they did the echo, that's when I could see my problem. The heart was beating very slow. I thought it would close. And I remember one of the doctors using Uganda word, say, and I got frightened. I said, "Is that my situation?"
You were about 50-something years old at this point.
Yes, 55.
55 years old. Is that a bit too young for the heart to have gotten tired? Doctor?
Thank you, Josephine. Yeah, Reverend Kakoko's story is a very typical story that affects many Ugandans who are now coming to the Heart Institute or presenting to hospitals with cardiac diseases. Of course, going a little back, we used to believe, or people used to teach in the medical schools, that the Africans didn't have a lot of heart diseases. But it is obvious that this was not true, and that these heart diseases are here with us, and they occur in all age groups, and also in the middle-aged people. So what Reverend is talking about is a heart condition where probably blood supply to his heart was compromised to the wiring of his heart, so that the electricity moving through his heart was interrupted, not continuously flowing in a normal way, in a rhythmic way it should flow. So there was this irregular and slowing of the heartbeat. And when that happened and the heartbeat fell below a critical level, usually around below 40, it is very hard for you to sustain any activity. In fact, at that level of heartbeat, you may be more comfortable lying down, or if you are seated almost doing nothing. Any level of activity will demand that the heart beats faster, yet it cannot, and therefore the organs will not get blood supply and you collapse.
So, which means he was lucky that this happened when he was sleeping?
It was a bit of luck on his side, But probably being the first attack he got, it was like probably the last warning sign that, you know, something is going wrong here. And your heart is getting blocked somehow. It is not passing on electricity very well to the chambers which need to pump it to the rest of the body. So it was a warning. He did collapse, and as he said, when blood was cut off that flows to the brain, of course the brain started suffering from lack of oxygen, and many things could happen, many images around that time. And then of course the good thing is that when you fall down, when the heart is not beating very well, the lying down position allows the heart, the blood now to flow to the heart, I mean to the brain. So now the brain wakes up. So collapsing did help him, that when he fell down, then the blood flow to the brain improved, and then he woke up. And of course the story of waking up was in steps, as he has already narrated it.
I would like an explanation on, so when he says you said the images that would come to you in that kind of state, does that explain what he saw? I mean, I know there's a medical angle to it, but there's also a spiritual angle to it.
Yes, I think anyway, Reverend had a spiritual angle to it, because I think his vision or his sudden exposure to another dimension, when he really saw all these people, all these angels, and all these people in golden clothes. Well, that was probably a spiritual angle. But it could also be explained in that when there is little oxygen to the brain, there is a lot of stimulation of a lot of brain activities before it eventually switches off if no blood comes to rescue it. But as again we say, we are both spiritual and material beings, so probably for him it was a new experience from a spiritual angle, which was probably more unique to him.
How, when I said lucky, because I know that there are people who don't get this first chance, because I think that was lucky. People get that one and they're done. Why is it? What was it different for him?
Yes, now with some of these heart diseases, especially the ones which we call arrhythmias, where the rhythm of the heart is disturbed, they are probably in classes and affects various different parts of the heart differently. Now, for him, what he developed was what we call a third-degree heart block. That one part of the heart was not connecting with the other. In fact, the main one now, which are basically the ventricles, the left ventricle, was like working independently of a stimulation from the atria, which are also chambers of the heart, which have got wiring that goes to the ventricle. So for him, having this third-degree heart block, I think because of the cause of the blood flow being reduced gradually, I think the ventricles had now adjusted themselves to work at a given maximum speed of around beats, around 40, at times 30, fluctuating between probably 25 up to 40. And that is really their rate when the main switch is cut off because of disease. Okay. They beat at that natural rate.
All right, well, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. I'm curious to know how it is that he could continue to survive at that heart rate even a day later into another day. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. And tonight we're talking about matters of the heart. And we just heard from Reverend William Kakokwe telling us his journey and how he came to... I mean, Reverend, you're what, 73 years old now?
73.
20 years since you...
20 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask Dr. Mugisa, the normal heart rate is what, 60 to 100?
60 to 100 beats per minute. Yes.
What's critical? Where do we say this is now critical?
Yeah. When we start getting below 60, we start getting worried. Now, if you start going below 40, then you start going into a danger zone. And that now the heart will no longer be able to meet your demands, your activity demands of the body, because its rate is so slow that the blood will not reach the muscles in time or continuously to supply oxygen which is needed for the activities.
So how is it that he managed to survive into the next day?
Yes. Now the ventricles, which is the chambers which really pump the blood eventually, especially the left to the rest of the body, when it is exposed to the disease to which he suffered from, he is going to explain the symptoms that originated about 3 years earlier. It had fallen, the heart rate of the ventricle had come down to a range. It was not like a figure, but a range, ranging from probably at best for 50, then coming down to about 30. That would be the normal range the ventricle would be working in, because now it had no regulator at all, but left alone, its rate of activity would go probably 30, up to 50, then back. A very irregular rhythm, not very normal, not regular, that because to the ventricle now that they have got a particular rhythm, they would also vary. So I think at the time when father had come from his activities in Barara, probably depending on what he had been doing, and the heart rate which was now constant for him at that time, probably it reached a point when it could not sustain him in an upright position or able to do his activities around, and therefore he collapsed. And when he collapsed, that meant that his brain was cut off from the blood supply.
And usually what is the age where you'd think, okay, this happens usually to people at this age?
Yes, now usually we would say around after 50. Right now we are looking at it around 50, but in men after 45. Okay. We begin to worry that there are blood vessels, which are the important vessels that carry blood, and especially the ones which carry blood to the heart muscles. The heart has also got blood vessels which supply the muscle of the heart, and which keeps the heart muscle pumping. Now, in his case, and in many of the cases that we see, these arteries get blocked, and when they get blocked, they don't supply enough blood supply to the heart muscle itself. So it begins also to suffer from a chronic insufficiency of blood and oxygen. Now, should some branches coming from these arteries, which go to vital points which control the electrical supply of the heart, get affected, they may be cut off. And usually in the heart there are two main ones. There is one in the upper chambers, which we call the atrium, and it is called the sinoatrial node. It is the one which regulates the heartbeat of the body. And as we said, the normal heartbeat is 60 to 100. So throughout the day and throughout a normal life, it is always regulating the heartbeat within that range. But now, depending on what activity you are doing, it may also allow you to go higher. And when you are doing little sleeping, it comes down lower. Okay. Now, for him, his condition, as he's going to explain his symptoms probably, we'll find that the connection between the sinoatrial node and another node in the ventricle called the atrioventricular node, which basically is a receiving point and then a distributor of electricity to the ventricle, were disjointed. They were not connected. And so that meant now, instead of the regulator and the atrium giving normal instruction on how to beat, the node there, the AV node, the atrioventricular node now was the one taking over. Okay. And it usually does it at a slower pace than the sinoatrial. So its regulation may allow the heart to beat from 25 up to probably 50 maximum. And that was the range in which he was also operating.
I'm curious to know how this can be avoided. I don't know if it's exercise or whatever, but we're going to come to that. Reverend Kakoko, what symptoms did you have before that?
Before that, I had symptoms which would have something pricking in my left part of the heart. Just sharp pricking. Then then it would stop. And after some months, it would come back again. Then after some time I would suffer. I didn't pay attention to it. So it was, I didn't pay attention to it. It took me a long time actually. Until one time, I was sharing with one doctor. Actually was a family friend, a doctor in Mulago. I told her how I was feeling, how these symptoms were coming over often. After some time they disappear, then they come back again. He said, Reverend, I am ready. Sometimes I get some pains in my stomach. I take Panadol and I get better. So although we are doctors, we cannot know what goes on in the body of a person. So when she told me that, I was comforted. I never cared. No. I said it was normal for those symptoms to come. Okay. They will always come. So they came, I didn't care. They came many times actually, but taking a long interval. Some months.
Okay.
And I must have been with them for about 3 years or more.
Do you remember any other particular symptoms that you now look back and say, maybe even this one?
No.
It was just the pricking?
The pricking. There's pricking here,
okay,
in the heart here. Cha! Then it will stop.
Those pains are fairly common, and in fact most patients who develop breathing problems may start with the pains he's describing. They are normally called angina pectoris in medical language. That is, they tell us that the blood supply to the heart muscles, is being compromised because the blood vessels to the heart are getting blocked. And they are getting narrower and therefore distributing less blood. And the symptoms would come on mostly if you are active, emotionally or physically. Then they would feel that the heart is beating very fast, but is not getting enough blood. So then it begins to operate with minimal or no oxygen at a certain point, and the muscles now begin to starve, and you get that pain. Okay. Now once you rest and you settle down a bit, then the heart rate goes down, then the symptoms go away. You feel as if nothing has happened.
So when should I start to worry? And you said for men it's about
for
45 to 50?
45 and above.
For women?
For women a little later. Women have got estrogens, their hormones protect them a little longer. But as they grow older, the advantage of the estrogen also dies off, especially after menopause. Then they are like men. So everything, it behaves like as
so
if
about what age?
Around 50, 55 women.
Okay. So how do I, if I don't get the pricks that he was getting, or even if I feel them at my age now, which I can't say, how do I know that this is a heart complication and I need to get checked?
That's a very good question. I think the first thing is that if you are aware, like I think Josephine, now we've had this talk, probably you'd worry about so many things. It is true that this chest has got many parts, many components which can give that type of pain. Many things can mimic that pain. But there are patients who may have other risk factors. Okay, let's say if somebody is eating a diet which probably is more of red meat, doing very little exercises, putting women a little more weight than usual, and probably more in the abdomen, central abdomen, and then also if there is within that family or his own family a history of heart problems, and particularly if there's somebody who died of a heart disease, then you begin to worry that you could be a candidate also for cardiac disease, even if you are still young. And also if you have got other conditions like blood pressure and diabetes, those may also accelerate heart problems. So if those are there, I think the first thing to do is to say, let me go and get a complete checkup. They check everything, including the heart. Now, if the heart is found to be free, you thank God for that. If the heart is found to be having a problem, then you are lucky you have caught the problem at an early stage.
Okay. We're going to take another short break. When we return, I hope we can then talk about the pacemaker and also what Reverend Kakoko is doing now, 20 years later, to help other heart patients.
back. Thank you for staying with us. Reverend Kakoko, at what point did you then start wearing a pacemaker, or did they put it?
That was 18th November 1999,
Same year.
when I was taken to the theater and was worked upon, and they gave me the artificial pacemaker. So I stayed in the hospital for a week, 7 days. I was discharged. Then I went home. But however, some people want to know, thank one person during that time when I was worked on. That is Dr. Wilson Randembo. Because I didn't have money, they wanted, when he shared with me, they wanted about 4 million to work on me, which I never had a single coin. So he came to me and said, I think we are going to work on you. I had been admitted, but we don't have the money, and I don't know what to do. So he became, in a way, he became a guarantee for my operation, to a guarantee to the doctors or to the hospital. So after they had worked on me, he came to me, showed me a list of the people who had paid the money, and I was grateful. It was about 3.5 million, which they had they raised
Together for you.
Yes.
Did you have
So after that, then I was discharged. I went home. So I think what went on, my brother doctor can explain
I
more
wanted to
than
ask
myself.
you if you had complications, if you've had complications in the last 20 years, or what do you need to do to keep yourself?
Myself,
Yes.
my advice to
Have you had any heart failures in the last 20 years? Any other complications with the heart?
there's something actually very interesting. After that operation, actually that pacemaker didn't do me well. The former symptoms came in again.
The pricking.
The pricking symptoms. They came in. I went and talked to the then Dr. Morris, and he said, "You don't. There's something which you don't know." He said, "This pacemaker we gave you was not meant for you. It was meant for someone else who passed on, who passed away." And secondly, so this pacemaker, you need another one. So he recommended me for another pacemaker, which actually we had to raise money for it, about $5,000.
Wow.
When we got the money, then the pacemaker, they bought a new pacemaker, which they gave me after 2 years, and that one took me for about 13 years, until 2015, when they recommended me to go to India for another change, which was the third time, that was 2015.
15.
So the pacemaker I have now is the third one. I've so far had 3 of them.
Okay.
The first didn't work well. Then the second one did well after 13 years. Also it had to be replaced, and had
This
to go
is
to
4
India.
years old now.
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Mugisa, can you talk to us about the pacemaker?
Pacemakers are really devices which are designed to work as your natural pacemaker works in the heart. It is a small machine, usually like we call it a generator, which has got wires running from it. Usually these wires are planted into the heart, into the chambers of the heart, or usually the ventricle and or the atrium on the right side, because these are the ones which can be accessed using the veins. And the machine regulates its impulses. These are currents which stimulate the heart to beat in a way that the natural pacemaker would do it.
Okay.
The pacemakers are of various types. Reverend is telling us that the first pacemaker was not the ideal one, was not the most suited one. Yes, it was not. It was not the most suitable one for his heart, because this one could only work on one chamber, the right ventricle where we implanted it. So it was able basically to keep it running without the other part in the atrium, which would normally assist or regulate the smooth rhythm of the heart. So because of that, its lifespan and the activities it did was just to help him get a stronger and a faster heartbeat for him to do his normal activities. And it was also sort of limited. You know, it would adjust probably to about 72, 80 beats, and would never go beyond that. So if he wanted to run, he would not be able to run. He would probably walk fast, but would not run. So after 3 years or 2 years, we had to change it to give him the right one. Now the right one was one where the right atrium would be paced and the right ventricle would be paced in a sort of a natural connection of how this should be in the human body.
Are you able to exercise when you have a pacemaker, like now if you wanted to exercise?
There are now, the devices are so many and they have got many other added functions. In fact, there are those which can allow you to do any activity. As soon as your body demands, it also allows you. Automatically it allows you to do whatever you want to. When you sleep, it also goes down to sleep and allows you to sleep without a racing heart. So it is just adjust to your demands of your activities. So when we gave him the second one was pacing the atrium and the right ventricle. So this was like flowing naturally, and so he was able to do more activities, and it was also programmed to work within a certain range. I think it was not going beyond 120 beats per minute. So he became a more free and more active man. Now these pacemakers have also got a lifespan. The battery which they have is limited. Most of them would go for 10 to 15 years. And within that time, around after 10 years, the battery begins to fail. And so you begin to experience symptoms of a failing battery, and therefore you need to change. And this change then should be done again in hospital. They put in a new pacemaker.
So the kind of pacemaker he has now, what's the lifespan for it?
Now this one, currently, Reverend has told me that this one was put in India, and I think already it has done 4 years. 4 years. Now, normally if they had put in any pacemaker, it should go up at least to 10 years, 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
So we hope to take him up to another 6 or 8 or 9 years.
Before he gets a change for it. Reverend Kakoko, 20 years later, what is your plan? I know that you have plans for the other patients who could have the same story as you.
Yes, my plan I have, actually, I want to, first of all, I want to thank God for looking after me from 1999 up to this time. And I want to actually thank the doctors who have worked on me. Especially I do want to thank Dr. John Omagino, the director of Heart Institute, because when I shared with him, he encouraged me to make an association for heart patients.
Okay. Well, our time is quickly running, so
yes.
I really want to know.
Yeah. So what I actually want to, my plan really is to help other patients, heart patients, by coming together, forming up an association where we can come together and share our joys and the problems, especially the way also, especially people who are not able to, to finance themselves to go out for
The treatment.
For treatment.
Yeah.
So
I also know the pacemaker is quite expensive. When we were
yes.
speaking to somebody recently, they told us it was about 70 million shillings.
Pacemakers range. They range probably between 2,500. Probably the best ones, the most expensive, maybe about 10, over 10 to 20. Those which have got many added functions.
Okay.
But most of them are between 2,500 US dollars to about 7,500 US dollars.
So that's quite costly. Yes, Dr. Reverend Kakoko. So you want to have an association where
Yes.
they can come together
Yes.
and fundraise as well.
And fundraise, and actually also help them to understand the problems with the heart, as the doctor was explaining to them. It's very important to know, and we will not know until we get other people to share with you what they have gone through. And
Okay.
by coming up together with an association, it will help us. First off, sensitize our friends far away in the village. Those are probably in Moroto, those are in Guru, those are in West Nile, to come together, wherever they are, to come together, and we make we register for the Association of Heart Patients,
Right.
which we are looking forward to seeing you registering when we
launch it.
launch
I
it.
noticed you worked with your certified true copy of registration of the company.
Yes,
So it has actually already been registered.
it has been registered,
Okay.
fully registered.
All right. Well, the doctor, would you just leave us with maybe some caution or word of advice for everyone out there on what we can do to avoid heart disease?
Thank you, Josephine. Now, heart diseases are getting very common these days. They are part of the spectrum of diseases called non-communicable diseases. The diseases which are related to lifestyle more than to infection or probably to road traffic crashes or accidents. These are conditions which we develop from our own lifestyle habits. So my advice is we should probably be cautious about the choices of food we eat. The junk food type of sort of fad which has come around has generated people who have also put on a lot of weight. And with their weight acquisition, you also acquire a lot of unusual or dangerous fats within our blood situations.
Okay.
And these fats, especially the cholesterol, have got a way in which they line and damage the blood vessels and narrow them down and compromise blood flow to the tissues, the muscles, to the heart, to the bones, to any part of the body. But critically to the heart, because it is a pumping organ and a very vital one. Once it is compromised, then your quality of life begins to go down, and if you are lucky, probably you may survive death. So let us eat proper, less fats in our diet, and in fact many people advise take less red meat, take more white meat, take more fish. Probably that would be good advice. Do exercise.
Okay.
You don't sit and be sedentary all the time. Walk around if you can't run. Even walking at least about 2 kilometers or 10,000 steps a day may help to keep you healthy. And then also, in our leisure life, let us not really indulge so much in the excesses of alcohol and others. Those also will bring damage to our hearts. But importantly is, let us eat healthy, let us live healthy, and let us also identify and recognize diseases early.
All right.
If you get high blood pressure, don't delay, don't go for herbal or supplements. Go for the actual treatment. And
Okay.
then you'll live a better life and probably a longer life.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Reverend Kakoko, for coming all the way. You have something you want to say? Okay, say
I have something to say. I have something to say. Friends, I want those who are actually listening to us, I want to share my experience that actually I went to heaven and I came back. Actually, more or less like the Lazarus experience we read in the Bible. So, friends, heaven is real. I've been there, and I know that some of you have got we have some people who don't believe in that, but heaven is there. Two, I want really to ask you that when we invite you for registration, please come. Heart patients come. We'll have to meet at the office of the Heart Institute in Mulago. Then we register, then we say the way forward for that
All right.
association. And finally, I want to thank all doctors in Mulago Hospital and nurses who have really been good to me. They have helped me. I want to thank even the doctors, and I want to thank the KRK advocates who helped me to organize this book, which is already registered. So when you become a member, you'll get one copy of it.
All right. Thank
And
you so much, Reverend Kakoko.
lastly, I want to thank my wife for
She
being
should
a
have
good
come
enough,
first.
being a good enough, has been a wonderful nurse to me. For the last 20 years, she has looked after me very, very, very well, and I'm grateful, and I thank her very much. And even other friends and relatives really who have contributed for my treatment for the first time, second time, and even third time. I'm grateful for all relatives and friends for your contribution for my treatment. Thank God bless you, and thank you very much.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. And like the Reverend says, when they do call upon heart patients to register, it could be very, very useful for you to have a support group around you that can guide you through a very difficult journey. Well, that brings us to the end of our show. Coming up is NTV Weekend Edition.